In modeling, in creating the geometry, it can be done in several ways in BricsCAD BIM. So of course, you may have heard that BricsCAD BIM is a design first tool, which is slightly different from other BIM authoring tools. We aim to get the geometry first before adding intelligence, adding the metadata, because we think that that could be pushed on later on in the BIM process. So it's not exactly like the integrated design project delivery process that you may be aware of. So in BricsCAD BIM, I'll begin with one of the first methods of bringing geometry in. So we use it, we can import various formats of geometry into BricsCAD BIM. So you might actually find, say, you've got a Rhino model or a SketchUp model, and you'd like to bring it into BricsCAD BIM. So what you could do is, first of all, in the start over here, you can always go onto open drawing, or like I just did, start a new drawing. So with open drawing, let's get an example of this one, overall.dwg. It's a slightly large model with 3 XREFs attached into this model, as you can see. So you've got a site as one, you've got this building, another one, and a very simple box over here. And we will turn this little box into something a little more fancy later in the process. And now we've actually have a series of XREF geometry. We'd like to bring in perhaps something more to complement this existing site over here. And we'll think of bringing something like a train station over here. And over here, go into the file dialog and you click on import. In BricsCAD BIM, you can import several different formats like I mentioned. So you have DWG, obviously. You've got DAE. You can bring MicroStation. I'm going to do a Rhino file later on. You can do SketchUp, IFC, which is the open BIM standard that we are advocates for. And of course, Revit projects for V21 and Revit family, which has been around for a couple of years. So in this case, for this exercise, I'm going to bring in a Rhino file. It's called Canopy. It's a .3dm. You click on open, and it should appear right in the middle of my origin, because in that Rhino file, the origin is in the center of the model. So what is the difference between import and open, say, another proprietary model in BricsCAD? So when you import an external file format such as this, you realize that these are now BricsCAD entities. And if I turn on my properties panel here, you realize that these are 3D solids, just like how Julie had demonstrated earlier with her examples of DWG solids. What you see now is exactly that as well. You can further modify them. Let's say I like to click on the face of this thing here and give a little extension. I've extended it the other way, I've snapped it the other way, so it's disappeared now. But you can always bring it back in. But yes, this is how you import geometry if you have already had something from an external software. Now, let's take a look at this box. We would like to modify this box, but however, this guy is an external reference. So what you can do here is you can go onto the attachment panel here, find out which of these guys is. Is it east model or west model or side model? But if you're not sure, you can always go onto your quad, hover down and find open XREF, which is in modify. That is the quickest way and almost a foolproof way to make sure you're opening the right model. And here you go. Now you have the box model. and that was directly referenced over here earlier. Now, we'd like to change the angle of this face here. And how I'm going to do that? First, we'll have to select the face. And if you could remember from the previous exercise, you can either do the prioritizing of the faces, or you can just simply select the face using the control button, which is what I did over here. And upon selecting it, you have a series of commands to choose from. And I would like to rotate this face because I would like to have it slanted outwards. Therefore, the axis of the turn would be on the base here. And over here, you can see how intuitive this rotating gadget is. You could do it by eye, or you could do it precisely by degrees. Over on this side, the same thing, rotate. And you can do it like this. And lastly, over here, let's say I had to point it this way, so I had to give it 15 degrees this way. So you can see it's a very flexible, a very intuitive tool which you could use to play around, to mold around. It's essentially like a mold or dough or Play-Doh where you can modify anything that you want and get your desired shape or volume. And let's say from here, I like to push this region upwards. And in this case, obviously, we have to turn on the boundary button here, boundary detection. So what it does is it automatically chooses which regions I'm looking for to push it in. And let's say I'm happy with this one. I'll just click it in, and the quad appears immediately to prompt me what my next action is. I've used the rotate button too much now, so it's coming up at the first. And you can see how this AI-based tool is learning your behavior. So I could use this push button, or you can go all the way down if you're not familiar with all these kind of shortcuts, just to find what other options you have. But in this case, it's a push button. And let's say 1500. Let's say I'm not too happy with how this is looking. I can further modify based on how I want. So let's say 30. Okay, now I'm happy with how it's actually looking. So you have to play around sometimes. It sometimes may snap, and that's because you've got the snap tool on. Always you can press F3 to turn it off, turn it back on. All these things are in your toolbox, in your command, in your control. So use them wisely and use them to get your desired results. Now, I have here a nicely shaped model, but this is just one solid, as you see. If I do a section across here, it's nothing but a big block of stuff. It's not exactly the fair section, so let me just cut it again. Now you can see the hatches. The hatches denote that something's been cut, and I don't really want this to be one solid. I like this to mimic a building. I want it to have perhaps a roof, a wall, etc., floors. And what I can do here is to use the shell button. So I go into modeling, modify, and there's a shell button here. And what it does is it gives it will hollow out the entire solid just to make it seem like everything's right on the outside, but internally it's just a hollow out solid. So it's prompting me to select 3D solid. I'll click here, I select, and it's prompting me for a offset distance. Let's say 300. Immediately you notice that despite being just one solid here, now it's hollowed out. And if I were to hide or unclick this guy, it looks just like previously, except that it's all hollowed out. Now I'm happy with how it's looking now. I like to split the entire solid such that it's gonna exist as different entities, roof being roofs, walls being walls, floor slabs, etc. So what I can do here is again hover back onto my quad and find the split button. Let's see. So the split button is usually over here in model on the second row. I click split, and you can see that the entity is split into 18 different parts. Let me just turn off the boundary. And what I mean by 18 different parts. Now, when I select this, I just get the roof. If I select this, I just get the walls. And the whole thing now, it's becoming more like a puzzle, a 3D puzzle, but there are parts where I think can be further made tidier, like these portions here, and this joint here. So what I can do right now is I can control how this joint should be like. So go into here, click on home, L connect, and this hotkey assistant with the control button here allows me to toggle how the joint should look like. This, the first one, is the mitered joint, so you don't see anything. This is the joint that I want, where this solid protrudes out and flushes against this surface. When I'm happy, the control, and that's it. Now, these two belong to the same plane, and I think they should be just one single entity. So what I can do here is go into modeling and click on the union button. And now you've merged two different entities into one. Let's repeat the exercise over here as well. So these two, the joins, but I'm going to do this time using the quad button, L connect. Same thing here, hotkey widget. I'm happy, union, there you go. It started to learn my behavior. All right, so now I have this one here. I can choose to say, edit something internally using the section by clipping the section, or I could hide this facade here so I can see what's going on inside here. And that's what I'm going to do because I have the full view of the floor plate here, which I just realized is made of 4 different parts. Again, union, and over on this side, you notice there is this big hole here, which I like to fill up. Well, one solution to fill this up is obviously to go onto primitives, add a box of the same thickness, and union it. But we have another tool which is quite useful, and it's called connect to nearest. So what I'm trying to do now is I'm selecting this face over here, and what I'm telling it to do is to shoot it to the nearest opposite edge in order to seal the hole. So if I do this connect with nearest, boom, immediately you find that the hole has been sealed and it's still one entity. The L connect tool that I just demonstrated over here on the vertical joint can also be done on a horizontal one like this. So if I do L connect, again, I'll toggle to to the one that I'm happy of, or even disjoin it. But let's take this one, because I am thinking of bringing this floor plate upwards, but I need a wall to hold the floor plate on this side and this side. So in this case, I could, again, select the space. I could do a push-pull. However, this push-pull means that I wouldn't be able to nicely flush against this slanted roof over here, as you can see. I mean, I could either protrude it and slice it, which is quite time-consuming. So again, I'll use the connect with nearest, because it logically makes sense and it gives me the slanted portion here, and it's nicely attached to the underside of this roof. Now that I have got this wall set here, I would like to bring this floor plate upwards. I'm going to duplicate maybe 3 or 4 floor slabs up here. And what I could do here is, obviously, you can revert back to your normal shortcuts, just like as you do with Pro or with BricsCAD Lite, which is copy CO. However, in BricsCAD BIM, we have something called BIM copy, which essentially copies your selected entity together with its metadata, if applicable. And in order to activate this control, you have to first select the face of this floor slab. Find this guy here called copy, BIM copy, or you can find it here at the first button here under model. So what it does is it's selecting the entire solid, not just the face, the entire solid, and a little bit like the manipulator tool, where you can select where you like to have it copied. And over in our case, I think we can do a 4 meter floor to floor height. Now you can see the prompt that a copy mode single copy has been turned on, and again you can see this little hotkey widget popping out to say there is another option called repeat. Now if I hit the control button, I can repeat it at intervals of 4 meters. And that's the job done. Everything is all 4 meters. I don't have to manually select or type 4 meters at each copy. And once I'm happy with it, again, I'm going to do this, connect to nearest, and because I've used that one now, the next one on my quad, you can see the AI tool is kicking in again. Now I think you can even double select it. There you go. You can select multiple faces, shoot it this way, and yeah, and here you go. My floor slabs are touching this side of my external wall and internal wall. And let's say I'd like to bring some internal walls in, but I'm not ready to bring a plan view or plan section, as we call it, through this floor plate in order to model that wall. So what you could do here is you can turn on boundary, select this guy, do a BIM copy, and you notice because I've just selected this boundary here, I'm only given this option to do it just on this floor and not the floor above or below. And once I'm happy with it, you can do intervals again. You can toggle it out, not to do the repeated stuff, and select your preference over here. So yeah, so that is it for sculpting, for 3D sculpting. I've gone through importing the geometry, which usually comes from perhaps an external source, such as Rhino or SketchUp. And I've taught you how